It is Sunday the 7th of January, and I'm in that moment between shall I take my son to the park before the Golden Globe starts. Here we go, I'll go very slowly. There you are. That is your entrance to the Golden Globes 2024. And in the meantime, what's going on in the political world? Well, believe it or not, the Golden Globes is all about fiction, and the political world could easily be about fiction. Shall we start with Mike Pence? Somebody has to. Maybe I'm dreaming. Maybe it was some sequence from a Netflix political situation or scenario. Perhaps Mike Pence is, well, FOS, because despite the fact there were a chance of hang Mike Pence on January the 6th 3 years ago, the poor man has got a little bit of, I don't know, brain isn't working, fuzzy stuff. Must be all those huge audiences that he was attracting when he was running to be nominee for president, because he is now backpedaling. Yes, Mike Pence has now decided to firmly place his tongue as far up the anal passage of one former guy. You think I'm making this up, don't you? Okay.
CHENEY on Friday would not go so far as to say that she supports taking Trump off the ballot, but she did say, quote, his actions clearly constituted an offense that is within the language of the 14th Amendment, unquote. My guess, covering you for some time now, is that you don't support taking Trump off the ballot. You probably prefer that that be left up to the voters. But setting that aside, do you think Donald Trump engaged in insurrection?
I've never called what happened on January 6th an insurrection. And it is noteworthy that even in the federal case in Washington, D.C., the president hasn't been charged with insurrection. Jake, I was there. It was a riot, the way it broke out, and I've never seen it any other way. And while I said that the president's words were reckless, and I believe that history and the American people will hold him ultimately to account for his role in that day. I think these efforts to take the decision away from the American people are really antithetical to the very democracy that President Biden and many Democrats talk about wanting to defend. I'm very confident that the American people will choose wisely. I'm confident that we'll run our elections, but removing the former president or any other candidate from the choice of the American people, I don't believe is in the interest of the country. And I have reason to be confident in that the Supreme Court of the United States will see it just that way.
Two tough anniversaries this weekend, the 3-year anniversary of the January 6th Capitol attack.
Name me a functional ability that Elise Stefanik has. Is there something that politically is so significant we should sit up with a straight back and say, wow? Nope. She speaks the equivalent of a Giuliani fart.
Is so important because the American people, they deserve transparency and accountability.
A lot to unpack there. Of course, the White House has said that Hunter Biden is acting unilaterally on the issue of election integrity, though. As you know, Trump took his case to court more than 60 times that there was fraud. He didn't win. But I want to get back to this key question. Do you still think it was a tragic day? Do you think that the people who stormed the Capitol should be held responsible to the full extent of the law?
I have concerns about the treatment of January 6 hostages. I have concerns. We have a role in Congress of oversight over our treatments of prisoners. And I believe that we're seeing the weaponization of the federal government against not just President Trump, but we're seeing it against conservatives. We're seeing it against Catholics. And that's one of the reasons why I'm so proud to serve on the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Government, because the American people want answers. They want transparency. And they understand that as you look across this country, there seems to be two sets of rules. If your last name is Clinton or it's Biden, you get to live by a different set of rules than if you're an everyday patriotic American. I've been clear, Kristen, if you go back and play the full speech I gave on the House floor, I condemn the violence just like I condemn the violence of the BLM riots, but I also importantly stood for election integrity and security of our elections, which if we don't have that, we do not have a democracy. So the real threat to our democracy is these baseless witch hunt investigations and lawsuits against President Trump.
Probably in the real world, you wouldn't normally mention Liz Cheney and that buffoon, DOPE, Johnson in the same sentence, but clearly within the Republican Party, 2024, it isn't the normal world. Just Mike Johnson, is he some type of Frankenstein experiment there you end up with? It's just all gone wrong. Something about this guy it's not normal. It really isn't.
When President Trump says immigrants are poisoning the blood of our country, is that a statement you agree with?
That's not language I would use, but I understand the urgency of President Trump's admonition. He's been saying this since he ran for president the first time, that we have to secure the border. And I think the vast majority of the American people understand the necessity of that, and I think they agree with his position.
But that statement goes beyond what you are personally comfortable with.
It's not language I would use, but I understand.
Because it sounds hateful.
Well, it's not hateful.
Great to be with you.
I want to give you a chance to respond to the speaker. Is it a fact, as he asserted, that when you were in House leadership, you considered signing on to that challenge to Donald Trump?
It is not. We were, as Mike said, in constant contact throughout that period. I actually know precisely when he sent me the brief and precisely when, less than 30 minutes later, I told him my concerns with the brief. Mike knows that as well. The brief itself was legally and constitutionally infirm. I made that clear. Mike's claims that somehow, and this is very dangerous, that somehow, as a member of Congress, he has the right to reject, ignore the rulings of the courts. You know, we have dozens of state and federal courts that assessed the claims, assessed the constitutionality, and rejected them. And Mike's position, which people really need to think about because it's so chilling, is that somehow as a member of Congress, he has the right to ignore the rulings of those courts, to assert, absent any finding of fact, that somehow he feels that something that happened was unconstitutional, and therefore that he can throw out the votes of millions of Americans. That's tyranny. It's not the rule of law, it's tyranny. And it's important for people to understand that, because this notion of rejecting, ignoring, refusing to abide by the rulings of the courts is also what we will see in a second Trump term if Donald Trump is reelected.
And you...
Anybody remember the days when we had a speaker who just got on with the job?
If you believe he engaged in insurrection under the plain meaning of the 14th Amendment, you believe he's ineligible to be president.
Those laws, those are up to the states. They have different laws from state to state. I don't think he should ever have been president. It's the Constitution. But nonetheless, there is a view of the Constitution in Article 14, Section 3, that he should not be able to run for president. But that's not the point. The point now is that, again, different states have different laws. We don't think in California that it applied. In our state, that's what the decision was made here. But anyway, not to go into that because that's very intricate. What is very clear is that the American people want us to honor our oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States.
Please do press the subscription button. All joking apart, it's been a while since we've really delved into just what's going on. And in 6 months, it has been 6 months since we've really put together any level of, well, this is the political landscape 2023. We're now in 2024. 6 months, nothing has changed. I'll give you two very clear examples to finish. There's no clear examples than that. Jim Jordan is still touting the same old nonsense. I promise you could take Jim Jordan, let's say June 2023, and Jim Jordan January 24. It's not like he's breathed in between. Same vile garbage. Literally platformed by Maria, what's her name? Conspiracy theory. Yeah. And one thing I will say though is Jamie Raskin. Jamie Raskin was on with Jen Psaki today, and it's the antidote. I think whenever now we have Jim Jordan coming out, same old garbage, we'll just buffer it up with Jamie Raskin. Let me ask you a straight question right now. Right? This is very simple. If you had $1, all right, who would you trust to... Somebody wants to borrow $1, all right? Who would you trust to give you that $1 back first? My money's on Raskin. You?
Well, if we pass it out of the committee, then pass it to the full House, which I think we can do, then it goes to the Justice Department. That'll be the Attorney General's decision whether he's going to press charges. But if he does, I mean, it could be up to a year of jail time for failing to come and comply with a deposition and for subpoena deposition to be interviewed by Congress. So This is serious stuff. And again, remember.
So you believe you will get all of these depositions done by the end of January? Some of the people you just mentioned. Give us your sense of what the most damning evidence is that you have so far on Joe Biden regarding bribery, potential money laundering. These are the terms that you and your colleagues have been using. Where's the evidence, and do you believe you're going to find more from these depositions by the end of January?
I do. To the last question, the most, I think, damning evidence thus far is what we got from Devin Archer when we deposed.
It's already become a centerpiece of the 2024 campaign. Both Donald Trump and Joe Biden are essentially running on January 6th, but in vastly different ways. One looks at the events of that day, the death, the destruction, the literal and figurative attack on the rule of law, and celebrates it. And one is firmly against it. One stands with the Constitution, and one said he wants to suspend it. One supports democracy, and one ignores it. One embraces political violence, and one rejects it. That is really what it all boils down to. And this weekend has served as an important reminder of that.
Well, obviously, it's a major insult and affront to the families of actual hostages still being held by Hamas in Gaza right now. But look, something struck me yesterday. It was sort of the dog that didn't bark. The Republicans released hundreds and hundreds of hours of TV security tape from January 6th. They've had months to examine it. They have not come up with a single shot which purports to capture an Antifa fighter or an FBI agent inciting the insurrection. Nothing. And yet they're still out there spreading their propaganda and disinformation about how it was really Antifa and FBI agents, which of course would make it strange to argue that all these people should be released and Trump's going to pardon them. Why would he want to pardon all these Antifa fighters? So there's no logic in their presentation. It really is characteristic of what you get from authoritarian